Alright, so the plan is to use all this cardboard from moving to make a garden. Charles Dowding style. Ish. This year's garden has been an exercise in iteration. My first plan was to spread cardboard everywhere, kill the grass, and do the no-dig method, similar to the way that Charles Dowding does it in the UK. And for the 3 beds that are back here, 1 and 2, that's exactly what I did. Unfortunately, they didn't work all that well, and for the large area here, which I originally laid out in cardboard, I couldn't see a good way to plant seeds directly into the material. And so what I did here is I lifted up all the cardboard. I put all that cardboard into a single pile over here. And then over here, what I did is dug up little mounds of dirt. And I flipped them over. This is called lazy bed gardening. It's a traditional Irish way of planting potatoes. And I planted the corn into that. So it's just been interesting that my plans keep evolving. There is frost damage in June. Such are the climate vagaries that I deal with. Over here we've got a really healthy clump that's doing much better. But every so often you find leaves that I didn't quite save with my straw covering from the other night. Here's an example. It's gone all limp and nasty right there. You can see that difference? That is frost damage, which is amazing. I had to put another coat on last night. I actually ran out here in my bathrobe and put the straw back on, but now I need to remove it so the plants will be able to see the sun and continue growing. One of the things that this is teaching me is how love and hate are connected. I love this garden, and therefore I hate anything that wants to take it away from me and my kids. Like, I have these very, very angry feelings toward Bambi right now. If I saw Bambi, I would want to shoot him out of an act of vengeance. And that's even for the thought of him eating my vegetables. These grasshoppers, on the other hand, they've got green blood on their hands.
What blood?
Or on their stupid little mandibles.
Wait, Dad.
It's time for a garden update. I've been collecting pole beans. These are from the beans that I planted among the corn. And you can see in this bunch here, I think I've gotten all the beans from there. But over here, we just might have a couple of new beans. That one's a little small. It is deeply gratifying to be able to harvest things from this garden. We've got some of the corn tasseling, and we've also got some silk production here. And what that means is that we're going to get some corn. This particular stalk has 2 cobs developing on it. As you can see, they're all quite short. I think the tallest of them only comes up a little less than my armpit. But I have hopes that despite the fact I did not thin, that we'll get some decent sized cobs. So, good stuff. Here are the mounds of corn with peas down in the understory. And these amazingly shrimpy cantaloupe. That's my finger for comparison. I'm growing bonsai cantaloupe. Yeah, some of the peas are doing quite well. And here we come to the garden beds that were supposed to be the main focus of the garden. They haven't really turned out that well. This is a zucchini that I planted, oh gosh, when did I plant this? 2.5 months ago, and he is just barely holding on to life. Similar story over here with the second zucchini, which is actually producing new leaves and impressing me. But the peas are doing okay. What I've found is that almost all the plants that I've transplanted in using this have done really, really badly. They linger on, they turn yellow, and then they die. Or they just linger and linger and linger forever, like these tomatoes. It's still alive, planted 2.5 months ago. But, I mean, that's not 2.5 months worth of growth. I'd expect that thing to be somewhere around here in height. And so, I don't know. I don't know if it's something in the horse manure that I found and collected for the garden or what. But I am assuming that these garden beds are going to take a year before they're productive. Get the next one. With a sickle, what you do is you hold on to it with one hand, and then you pull the sickle through with the other. Pull. Just like that. That's right. That's good. Put the sickle where you want it to cut. Right at the bottom. There you go. Making me a little nervous. And at the end of that season, this is how much corn I produced. A little less than a number 10 can. Most of them are poorly pollinated, but there's a few examples that look really... This one has a single yellow kernel and some of them have a green tint. This one's a bit closer to what you'd expect from glass gem corn. And the rest are, different shades of almost disappointing. That one actually looks pretty cool right there. One of the problems I had this year was that the deer nibbled down the silk. And not the whole corn, mind you, just the silk. They nibble off the parts they like and leave everything else. And the result was very poor pollination and a very, very small yield of corn. This next year, one of my top priorities is to finish the fence. More on that in an upcoming video. And then hopefully I'll be able to produce more next year. Yeah. Iteration in the garden. Because my first plans don't always work. There's something beautiful about how concrete gardening is. For a long time, I've had a thought that boxing is the single best solution for relativism or solipsism that there is. Relativism is the doctrine or idea that everything's relative, nothing is fixed. There are no absolute truths, which, if that is an absolute truth, it contradicts itself. And if you want to believe that the world is relative, you can do that until you're in a boxing match or in a taekwondo match or some kind of physical altercation, because punches are very real. There is nothing more real than a punch to the face. And there is also nothing more real than a garden. For this reason, I've looked, when I judge philosophers, I have a couple of heuristics which will boost my respect tremendously for a philosopher. One is, did they have a family? Did they have to deal with interpersonal relationships on a close level? Did they have to understand marriage and children and understand that we are not born into this world fully functioning, especially not mentally? That's something that we have to grow into. And how do you deal with agency and accountability when you have differences in capacity? So that's one thing. Another thing that I've used to judge philosophers is whether or not they had experience in some sort of fighting, because that forces the real world on you in a way that is very undeniable. And then I think I might add one more to the list. That might be gardening. I mean, you love the world and you have a stochastic relationship with the world in gardening. I don't control the outcome. I can't. The weather is beyond my control. The insects are to a great degree beyond my control and a perpetual nuisance. I got grasshoppers everywhere. And one beautiful little cucumber plant over yonder, which is being eaten by the ants. And I hate them. When you garden, you can't control outcome, but you can influence outcome. So it's a lot like teaching or parenting. You do the best you can, and if you don't do the best you can pretty much guarantee failure. But even if you do the best you can, it might not be enough. In all of these three stochastic arts, you have to enter into a relationship, and you have to negotiate. You have to negotiate with the soil and understand what it will and will not do, and then try to work with what it will and will not do. And some things it will and will not do contrary to your intentions. Like when you find out that plant direct seeding into a no-till garden bed that still has cardboard is actually really difficult to do. Or when you find out that the soil has very little nitrogen and therefore needs some desperate help. And my side of that relationship is to identify the need, and if it's something that I feel needs to be filled, work to try to fill that need. I've got a lot of nitrogen deficiency in here. Some of these plants are doing better than others. And that's a funny story. But yeah, stochastic arts, they are real. You don't control them. They're not in your head. But you also don't control them, and because they're outside of you, it's a little bit like prayer. You don't control outcomes with prayer, but you can negotiate. It's a very interesting thing. We like in-out relationships, and there's that experiment with the pigeons. If you have the pigeon push a button and it gets a reward, it learns pretty quickly to push the button and get the reward. If you set up an algorithm that's more or less random for the pigeon to hit the button, and sometimes food will come out and sometimes it won't, the pigeon will sit there and obsessively push the button. Even when food comes out, it will just keep pushing the button, looking for the pattern. That's maybe something about these stochastic relationships, is that they require a lot of knowledge, but at the same time, because you can't have all the knowledge, to have all the knowledge you'd be able to basically control it. So I guess that means that it requires a degree of humility as well. Curiosity is a positive version of humility. It's expecting surprises, which requires you to believe that you don't know everything. But it comes with a sort of excitement that you're going to learn something new if you keep your eyes open. And that is a beautiful thing about the personality of someone who is drawn to science, is curiosity. It's that positive side of humility, which, heaven forbid, never lose that, because it's a good thing. You need to keep your eyes open and be willing to see patterns that you did not see before, to have direct communion with reality. And notice that your plants have a nitrogen deficiency. Time to visit a chicken coop. This is me talking about the garden, rambling a little bit. And because I'm rambling, I'm not even sure that this is worth posting. I don't know. Let me know what you think. See you next time.